this was an $18 million project. I'm making it sound really simple, but it took 10 years and $18 million. So last October, we breached the levee. It was a very exciting, very big moment. And now that ag land is under water. And immediately the birds and wildlife are starting to use it. I'm taking a commercial break. Please vote yes on delay. It will provide, it's a $12 personal tax, and it will provide funding to do more Baylor restoration work throughout the 9-county area. Jumping to Sonoma Valley, again, just wanted to highlight that we're doing some really interesting wildlife corridor work. This was a mapped corridor between the Blue Ridge Berryessa area and Point Reyes. And what we wanted to do is test that hypothesis. So this map is hard to read, hard to see, but all these little yellow dots is where we placed wildlife cameras throughout this region. This white line is the pinch point in Sonoma Valley. This is Sonoma Valley right here. And we wanted to see if it looks great on a map, but is that wildlife corridor really happening? So we placed cameras throughout the region for 2 years, and 198,000 pictures later, we determined that yes, the critters are using that corridor. We have all of the ones that you would expect: deer, turkey, mountain lion, coyote, bobcat, but we found that there were some ones that we thought were no longer around, and that was really exciting. Porcupine, which everybody thought was just no longer around, and beaver. So really great science, but we're not just keeping it on the shelf. What we do with it is then we go and we talk to the neighbors and say, hey, you guys are living in a wildlife corridor. Here are some things you can do to keep it open and keep it permeable. On the Jenner Headlands, folks might be interested to hear that people presume that when we buy land, we just hold it and set aside and do nothing with it. But no, we actually actively manage it, which means for Jenner Headlands, we're going to be cutting trees to help our forests grow older and bigger, faster. Jenner Headlands is a 5,600 acre property. This is the Russian River on the coast, just north of Jenner. This was acquired in 2009. At the time, it was the largest land conservation transaction. It's a $36 million deal put together with 2 federal agencies, 2 state agencies, the Open Space District, and some private funding. As you can see, we've got about 1,400 acres of coastal prairie, and behind it, 3,100 acres of redwood Doug fir forest. Diving into the forest management piece, which was really one of the goals here, the photo on the left is from 1947. You can see how intact that redwood Doug fir forest was. Amazingly beautiful. After World War II and the advent of tractor logging, you can see what happened. This photo is from 1960, and basically almost every tree had been clear-cut on the property. Since the 60s, they did grow back. It's in a little bit of a better condition, but our goal out there is to, again, accelerate the transition of that younger forest into an older old-growth forest with old-growth characteristics. This is basically what it looks like out there. Not all of it, but much of it. A really tight thicket of young trees. This is not a healthy condition for the forest. So this is the reference condition. This is what we want it to look like. And we've gone back and looked at old inventories to really make sure we know what our goals are to bring the forest back to the level and the spacing and the size and, of diameter trees that we want to have out there. So how are we going to get from the current condition to the reference condition? This basically is the goal, to have these, on the bottom here are the diameter of trees at breast height. So you can see in the reference condition, we've got a very evenly dispersed tree size and age classes throughout the forest. And the red is basically what we have. So we've got a lot of young, skinny trees. So how we're going to do that is we're going to thin them. We're going to go through probably over several hundred years and rotate through and basically go to a clump like that, leave the best 4, take the worst 3, and then continue to thin it over periods of 15 to 20 years until we ultimately end up with the reference condition forest. Finally, here we are at Estero Ranch, which is the reason I think Julie wanted me to come and talk to you today. Estero Ranch is a 547-acre ranch. out on the coast. This is Bodega Bay. The town of Bodega Bay itself is up there. This is Doran Beach and Estero Ranch. The Estero Ranch is the border between Sonoma County and Marin County, and these green, lighter green areas in Marin County are lands that are protected by the Marin Agricultural Land Trust. Just zooming in a little bit closer, you can see that the ranch, Estero Ranch, is adjacent to our existing preserve, Estero Americano Preserve. This is an example of being strategically opportunistic. This ranch in this area had been in the planning effort in the goal of protecting for over 20 years by plans that were done over 20 years ago. We waited and waited. It finally came on the market in 2013, and we were able to negotiate the acquisition of the property and closed in 2015. Here's a photograph of it, and you can see the Estero Americano is this watershed here. It's only one of two in the state that has this kind of geological formation. It's more like a fjord-like watershed. Most of our watersheds, as you know, just come steeply down from mountains and the water's rushing in. So here is a very unique, it's been watershed, which means it's got a lot of great habitat for fish and wildlife, and especially birds for the Pacific Flyway. This whole area has really been in private hands, so it's been well maintained and pretty well protected. So we're really looking forward to having an opportunity to go in and actually study more what's in the Estero Americano. The property includes about 3/4 of a mile of the Pacific coast and about a mile up of the Estero Americano. It's mostly coastal prairie, and the coastal prairie habitat is intact. We've lost about 90% of our coastal prairie habitat, so it's really important to try to keep it protected. And you can see right next door the Bodega Harbor subdivision up here. That wouldn't happen today, but that was probably one of the last subdivisions that went in before the Coastal Act. But it still is nice to have this open space area and protecting this from estate-type subdivision and uses, and maintaining and making sure that the property remains in agricultural production. I thought this photo was good. It shows the proximity to Bodega Head. The goal out here for recreational use is to bring in folks from Doran Beach to walk along and hike, create trails to hike up onto the property and create a trail system. The views from that ridgetop road are pretty spectacular, so we're looking forward to getting folks out there. Just another photo of the Estero. Some things to leave you with, just so hopefully you've learned in this very brief presentation that we're doing lots and lots of things, bringing back our wetlands, painstakingly studying our critters, using science to guide us, managing our lands for the betterment of and for the environment and the health of the forests. What we do is we await long-sought opportunities. This takes passion, persistence, patience, and longevity. I think our work enhances your lives and your livelihoods. I think we do have an economic impact on Sonoma County, and I would hope that you would consider becoming a member or a donor of Sonoma Land Trust. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions, and I'm also going to be staying afterwards. Yes.
You're going to do with all the timber that you take out of the general highway.
What are we going to do with the timber?
Right.
We will sell it. We're going to be doing some commercial harvesting. We hope to work with Barry's Mill. We want to work with a local mill. There's a big local food movement. I'm really a proponent of local wood movement too. So we will be selling it. The cost of timber harvest plans and doing a timber harvest is pretty extraordinary. So we're hoping just really to break even and cover the cost of doing it. I don't think we're going to be making a lot of money. But there is a requirement on that transaction that any revenue earned off that property gets put back into the property. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that that you're using Barry's sawmill because they need the work. It's a great sawmill. If you all haven't been there, and they've really been struggling against the larger mills up north. So if you all need any lumber and you're in West County, try to support them. They're a family-owned operation. Second thing, I've been down to Estero through the Land Paths organization, and they got private access through the property, I think, that you all just acquired. And it was a kayaking canoeing trip. Will that still be available for the public?
Yeah, I think that kayaking, there's a access point in the town of Valley Forge, so I think a lot of people do land pass as well, load in their kayaks and bring them down. What we want to do on Estero is have a pull-out down there, because a lot of the ranching community has been very concerned about trespass from the kayakers onto their private ranches. So we see Estero Ranch as an opportunity to provide the folks who are kayaking a place to pull out on a place that they can go hike up and explore, and then get back in their kayaks and go back to the load-in point. But we've done a lot of outreach with the ranchers to explain that we think it's a benefit and will help with their trespass issues that they're having out there.
Amy, could you speak to some of the things that the Land Trust does in cooperation with Open Space District and state parks like Redwood, how that fits into it?
Yeah, you bet. A lot of what we do is assist with transactions. Going back to that map in the beginning, some of those yellow areas. But we do work hand in hand with the Open Space District. They are the government agency. They're funded by 1/4% of your sales tax, and most of our projects, what the advantage that we do is we are able to work with them and then leverage their funds with other funds that we can bring to the county. So for example, Estero Ranch, it was a $3.8 million acquisition. The Open Space District put in a little less than $2 million, and then we were able to leverage those local dollars with state funding from the Coastal Conservancy and private funding from the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation. So we work basically hand in hand with them on a lot of the transactions. Another example is the Red Hill transaction, where we will purchase land and then transfer it to state parks and maybe help with the acquisition arm of the transaction. Sometimes a nonprofit can move a little bit faster than our government agencies, and so we serve that role sometimes.
Amy, a few years ago, I think Moorheart Ridge was one of the properties that you guys were looking at. I'm involved with the Coast Hills Community Forest. And is that still a possibility? Is that still on the table at all?
Good question. We worked with Judy Rosales at Coast Ridge. Yeah, it's great. She's great. You guys are great. Moorheart Ridge, well, we did look at it. A lot of times funding for projects is very competitive. And at that time, it wasn't rising to the level of funding that a lot of the coastal projects were. If Phil is ever interested in doing a transaction, we'd be happy to talk with him and see what we can do.
Maybe, does the Land Trust accept donations of other property, then sell them to produce funds to get a larger piece? So if somebody wanted to donate their 1 acre property or something like that, would you consider taking that on and reselling it to get funds, acquire funds for some bigger project?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. Yes, we refer to those as trade lands. And if the property does not have any conservation value and the donor is happy to let us sell it to use for our work, yes, we are able to do those types of transactions. Thanks.
So, away from the coast, you must have a lot of competition from other people wanting to buy property that comes up for sale. How does that work along the coast with the Coastal Preservation Act and all of that? Do you have competition, or is most of it going to Land Trust that comes up?
We still think there's a lot of competition, and what we're trying to do is keeping mostly it's the productive. The biggest competition we have are from the folks, what we call kind of high-tech state buyers, who want to come and buy 500 acres and plop their big house there and then not manage land. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the land stays intact and managed for agriculture and open space. Estero Ranch, for an example, it went on the market for 6.9. They had offers for above 7 million. Now, there's a situation on Estero Ranch, there's an existing leasehold that enabled us to negotiate the price, but we're often competing with other developers and buyers. Pole Mountain is another example of that, where we were trying to put that one together while it was on the market too.
The one behind you.
I'll give you the mic.
Amy, thank you. What's on your wish list? What's on the SLT's wish list that could be coming up in the near future?
You want insider knowledge, is that what you're
I'm gonna buy in.
Sure.
I'm teasing. No, we're working on, what we think is best is to expand in areas that we've already invested in. So we're looking at opportunities around the Jenner Headlands area. There's a couple of larger ownerships there. We realize certainly that we don't want to own it all, we shouldn't own it all or protect it, but so working with landowners on best management practices and getting grant funds sometimes to help them manage their lands better. So it's a combination of both a wish list for protection, but also really expanding our base to be more community-oriented, like the community forest is a great example of trying to work with Judy and those folks to bring funding to the small landowners to make it easier for them to manage their lands.
My impression over my years living here in Sonoma is that there's an absence of biking and hiking corridor that connects northern Marin County to some of our recreational lands and open lands in Sonoma County. And I am wondering whether the land trust has considered acquiring easements that would allow for biking or hiking trails to connect those points. I'm thinking through the, from Petaluma and coming close to the recycling site out there on North Meekum Road and up across those lands towards some of the more open spaces. Is anything like that ever contemplated as sort of easement acquisitions for those purposes?
Yeah, in that particular area, I'm just trying to think of the rec plan that's been in the works. There's the coastal trail, obviously, there's the coastal trail, which is, the goal is to have a trail going up along the coast, and whether there's one coming out from Petaluma specifically, I can't visualize that. But to answer your question, we're always interested in if there's a seller who's willing to sell an easement, whether it's a conservation easement or a trail easement for recreational use, we'd be happy to talk with them. On a trail type of perspective, you really want to follow a plan so that it's understood, where all those connections are going to be made before you start doing the acquisition work.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I bring it up is it's actually dangerous to ride bicycles along the roads in southern Sonoma County. If there would be an easement, that would certainly mitigate that problem.
Yeah, that's a great question. I should just take a closer look at the rec plan and see what the opportunities are in the Petaluma Gap area.
I'm just gonna take a chair.
Okay. I'll bring it out. But before you slip away.
Way to go.
That's it. You want to break something, give it to Bruce.
I'm drawing one of these. See who our lucky winner is. Yes. 728. Gender All right. Thank you. Well, I don't know which one it is.
4. Is this our door for all? Thank you. Jennifer Taro.
Okay, I figured since it was an election season that it was time for a couple of good politicians. The first one, quick and short. Thank you, Bruce, appreciate it. How do you keep a politician from drowning? You shoot them before they hit the water. The second one is what happens when you give a politician Viagra? They get taller.
Okay, here we go. Happy trails to you.